materials, more than anything, represents the peak moments of any act. In our case, the crisis in Ken. It also specifies the timing of the action and the circumstances in which they were carried out. This telegraph of July 1949 describes laconically the problematic situation asking for immediate rescue. Property deeds. These are formal certifications that may testify to non-institutional settlements. Kfar Shiloh, for example, where those who made Aliyah as part of BeTamar were settled, is documented in the archives by later certificates. The slide shows property deeds and list of homeowners. Newspapers. Our newspaper collection is unique and includes Hebrew newspaper published since the end of the 19th century. Sometimes foreign newspapers are also found in the relevant files. Then, as today, concerns for public relations sometimes took precedence over the needs for secrecy. The 1959 exposure of the operation in Israeli daily press drew a sharp response from the community committee in Aden 2 days later. I looked at several publications and found out that Yehuda Dominitz, who later also leaked the story of the secret airlift of Ethiopian Jews, was the apparent source of the leak in this case as well. These are two of many newspapers identified with Jewry of Aden and Yemen. Some are governmental publishing, others by Yemenite organized association. This genre indicates the interest of the community in Israel at the time, and of course the contribution of journalists and influencers of public opinion to the shaping of the public attitude. Announcements. This is a unique announcement by a group of Yemenites who founded in 1903 in Jaffa the association Poulat Sachir in an attempt to integrate into the colonies as agricultural workers. And this is way before Yavnieli's journey to Aden and Yemen. Please acknowledge the wonderful Passion Hebrew. I would like also to present a highly biblical language announcement issued by Keren HaYesod in the very first year of its existence, mobilizing the Aden community to raise funds for the Zionist activity in the land of Israel. And some Zionist activities by young men Hebrew Association in Aden, such as screening the film Palestine under the British mandate. Posters, who were the social network at that time. And now audio materials. I may operate it by several recorded interviews with Aliyah activities of the last wave of Aliyah can be found in the division S137, known also as Melilot Project. Let's listen to a short part of an interview with Arik Haddad, one of the primary activities in the last wave of Aliyah. He arrived in the center of Raida, and he now tries to contact a Jew he saw in the street. Can you operate it?
I know אתה צריך לקחת לסעודים עכשיו. המזל שלי, היה באפריל, היה בתקופת פסח, וזה היה הרמדאן אצלנו. והיה איזשהו אדם שהיה מוכר את תפוחי עץ, על הכביש הראשי. הוא כנראה היה מוכר את תפוחי עץ במכוון לאותם אנשים זרים קצת, שקיימים באותו זה. זה הרי הרמדאן לא אוכל. ומול המוכר את תפוחי עץ, זה שכונת קרונית. הנהג בשירות הזה, בשירות אותי היה עמד יהודי, עם בעוד כאלה ארוכות. עכשיו, וגם כן, כל המשטר הקשה הזה, אז עכשיו יש לך יהודי מולך. אתה לא יודע מה לעשות איתו, אתה לא יודע לגשת אליו, לא לגשת אליו, להגיד אותו, לא להגיד אותו, לסכן אותו, אתה לא יודע מה כלום. אבל לא ידעתי מה לעשות. הגשתי למוכר את התפוחי עץ הזה, קניתי את התפוחי עץ. הייתי גם כן את התפוחי עץ, לקחתי את תפוח ובירכתי עליו חזק. ואז היהודי היה המון. אתה רואה, היה קונה את התפוח, היה מברך עליו חזק אחד בכל העם, אז הוא ישים את הברכה, אז הוא יתחחק. עוד אחת. יתחחק, אבל הוא עלה.
מי זה היה?
אריק חדד. I would like to end with this beautiful artifact. This is a beautiful scroll of, for example, prepared by Yemenite jewelers who worked in Bezalel Art Studio. It was created to honor the return of the Jewish educator David Yelin from his exile in Damascus in 1919, and this is part of our artifacts collection. Thank you so much. Shalom לכולם, shalom everybody. I'm pleased to be here and I want to thank the organizers and now directly to my talk. The Central Zionist Archives was founded in Berlin in 1919 as the official archive of the Zionist movement and the national institutions. The archive, reserved for generations to come, Yigal. I bet I need to work with this also. You don't hear me? עכשיו יותר טוב?
הוא דלוק?
הוא דלוק.
יש ירוק?
The archives preserve for generations to come the documentation of the Zionist enterprise from the founding of the World Zionist Organization to the present day. This includes Zionist activity in the land of Israel and in the Jewish diaspora. It is thus clear that subjects related to the Zionism of Jews of Aden and Yemenite Jewry in general are an integral part of the archive's collections. I would like now to state several comments. First, my talk today comes from the perspective of an archivist and not a researcher. Therefore, my paper is arranged according to the types of the materials engaging with our subject and the potential lies in them. Second, Aden was the gateway for the Aliyah of Yemenite Jewry, and therefore it is almost impossible to separate the subject of Zionist activity in Aden from the discussion about Yemenite Jewry. Third, our time today will only allow me to review a limited number of topics discussed in the materials. I choose to mainly present documents that direct to the major events as well as the ones that are less known. Many of them deserves extended research. The Central Zionist Archives contains an enormous volume of direct materials about Zionist activity in Aden and in Yemen. The subject is discussed in over 180 record groups, including 114 institutional groups. The major ones are the Aliyah Department of the Sachnut HaYehudit, Jewish Agency for Israel, the materials conducted by the head office of JNF, Keren Kayemet L'Israel, the Youth Aliyah Department of the Sachnut, and more. The subject also appears in 67 personal archives, the most prominent being those of Shmuel Yavnieli and Yosef Tzurieli. In total, there are 1,314 files and another 607 documents highlighted in the archives catalog. To this must be added over 3,000 photographs, some of which were received recently and are in various stages of registrations and inclusion in the archives databases. It is important to note that this data appears under the keywords Aden or Yemen. However, the hierarchical organization of the materials allows the assertive users to expand the search to departments whose regular activities also touches to the Jews of Aden and Yemen. For example, the political department of the Jewish Agency, the Agriculture Settlement Department, and others. It is that, in that case, the volume of relevant files would increase by several hundred, or maybe even more. So let us now explore the type of the materials in the archives. First, correspondence. This category holds hundreds of letters between individuals and with representative bodies, mainly with the national institutions. I wish to begin with Shmuel Yavnieli's journey to Yemen in 1911. Yavnieli carried with him a 24-question survey composed by Arab Cook to learn the religious customs of Jews of Yemen and Aden. I choose to present here the response of the Aden Rabbinical Corps. It is interesting that the rabbis of Aden answered Rav Cook's long and complex questions quite briefly, almost laconically. On the right you see the questions, on the left you see the answer. For example, the answer to question 1, in our custom, they say, there is no double marriage except as it relates to the mitzvah of levirate marriage, yibum in Hebrew, or procreation in case the woman is infertile. The head office of the JNF archive holds intensive correspondence in the 40s with Miriam Bat Yehuda, director at the time of the girls' school in Aden, Ora mentioned that, regarding Hebrew and Zionist materials. On the one hand, this speaks of the qualifications of the highly motivated Zionist woman, on the other hand, of the forceful machine of Zionist propaganda. The two documents before us records the tension that arose between the leaders of this Jewish community in Aden and the Jewish agency's shlichim during the second half of 1948. The reason for this is the changed attitude of the local authorities and the residents towards the community after the establishment of the State of Israel. As a result, while regular Zionist activity could be conducted openly in Chashed camp, underground activity was required in Aden. Next time is records. Dozens of reports preserved in the archives testify to the situation in Aden at critical points in time. Here is a detailed report from Yosef Tabib and Gershon Agronsky to Yosef Shprintzak, then head of the Jewish Agency Aliyah Department, in June 1930. The report holds 54 written pages, handwritten pages. The recommendations resulted in a small but constant stream of immigrants reached Israel from the 30s until the mid-40s. In May 1949, Dr. Yaakov Weinstein proposed his program and report about the escape plan. It was an attempt to find an emergency solution to the complicated situation due to the unbearable weight of overpopulation in camp. Please acknowledge the schematic map attached to the report. Dr. Yosef Meir's report from September 1949 speaks for itself. He wrote, and I quote, "There is one and only one radical solution, the transfer of the people to Israel as quickly as possible." He meant, of course, regardless of their disease. Protocols. This is a protocol of the meeting of the Committee on Yemeni Affairs at the Palestinian Bureau in 1914, המשרד הארץ ישראלי. The participants discussed the Yemenite needs in the colonies, work, health, housing, etc. Contracts and agreements. During the 50s and the 60s, Aliyah secretly continued through Aden in small numbers, as we heard from Menashe Anzi. Some of the arrangements were made by Arab agents who were really nothing but owners of transport companies. Here is one of the agreements signed by the Jewish Community Council of Aden on behalf of the Jewish Agency. Diaries. Here is the opening page of Shmuel Yavnieli's manuscript, My Journey to Yemen, a journey that made it clear to the Zionist leadership as to the primary roots of Zionism of the Jews of Aden and Yemen. Architectural plans. From the early 1920s onward, the Palestinian Bureau and Keren Kayemet, and later the Jewish Agency's technical office as well, increased their activity for the sake of building neighborhoods for the Yemenite workers alongside the colonies. The example before us refers to the Yemenite neighborhood in Rishon LeZion 1921 and Petah Tikva 1922. Maps, most of which refer to settlements in the land of Israel. This is the layout of the settlement planned for Emek Hefer in the Sharon region at the end of the 1920s. The caption Yemenite refers to the allocation of the land for the future settlement of Eliashiv, which was established in 1933. The two small sketches before us hints to a less-known initiative of Yosef Weitz to settle Israeli hilly areas with immigrants who came from mountain regions. He believed that they could be able to adapt better than others to such settlements. Under his plan, immigrants from Yemen and later from Kurdistan were sent to more than 50 newly established labor villages, as he called them. The villages were set up in a temporary settlements without infrastructures. The expectation was that the settlers who would work for Keren Kayemet mostly would acclimate to the area and then move to permanent settlements established nearby. Photographs. As we speak about labor villages, this is how they looked like in real time. The labor village of the area of Kisalon in the left, on the right, and on the right, stone removal near Kfar Tzuriel in the western part of the Upper Galilee. Most of our photographs are authentic. but some were staged for the propaganda service of the Magbiot, of the national funds. Our collection on the activity in Aden focuses mainly on youth. Here we have two Zionist youth groups active in Aden at the late 40s, as well as Zionist activities of Yemenite youth in Aden and in Hashem. Ovadiah Tuvia, the very famous composer who was born in Aden, led the Zionist activities in Aden since his arrival there, I assume in 1946. He definitely deserves special attention. His graduation from London's Trinity College of Music is certainly reflected in these photos. Giving birth and a burial of dead in camp, moving to the airplanes and flying up to Israel. I would like to end this session of photographs with two photographs of Bezalel Art Studio in Ben Shemen. The studio operated for several years since 1910 by a skilled Yemenite goldsmith who lived in small tiny dwelling nearby. I was recently pleased to learn about the initiative to restore the building and restart the activities in it. Lists. Naming list of immigrants, settlers, supporters, contributors, and so on. This category provides a valuable genealogical information. As I estimate, there are tens of thousands of names recorded in the files of the Aliyah department in our archive. I would like also to pay your attention to the entire census of Jews of Yemen in the 1990s, which arrived lately in the Zionist archives as part of the personal archive of Naftali Hilger, who visited Aden and Yemen several times in the 90s. At this point, I would like to thank Dr. Dani Bar Maoz and Hanania Koresh for their kind assistance. Thank you both, gentlemen.